Thank you, Dr. Chappell, because I am not used to talking in front of people who aren't moving. Yeah, when you're ready, you can still go on their toes if you want, that's fine. Good evening, my name is Alethia Paredes. I will present my thesis, Breath of Change, Investigating the Feasibility and Subjective Benefits of a 2-minute breathing practice, a randomized controlled trial. As we now know, breath is essential to life. Breathing techniques have been used for a millennia in yogic traditions to induce relaxation and altered states of consciousness. Thanks to Megan, we now know a little bit more about the history of the breath throughout yogic traditions. And controlling the breath is now increasingly being used in Western medicine as a way to help reduce anxiety, lower blood pressure, and improve overall well-being. This thesis seeks to identify if daily video instruction supports novice practitioners in developing a consistent 2-minute practice of focused, relaxed breathing pranayama, identifying the potential barriers and any subjective benefits. All right. So I invite you to take a moment to breathe. So let's go ahead and, if you'd like, find a comfortable position, preferably with your spine straight, maybe with both feet firmly planted on the ground. If you'd like to close your eyes or choose a soft gaze, feel free. And without changing the breath just yet, just notice how you're breathing at this very moment. Noticing the sensations of the breath coming in and out of your nose. And then if it feels comfortable, maybe noticing where in your body your breath moves. So noticing where in your body your inhale moves and where in your body your exhale moves. And if that feels comfortable, feel free to start to slow down the breath. Just notice how that feels like for you. If that feels comfortable, then maybe you start to count your inhale and exhale. And noticing the sensations as you count your breath in and out. Feeling free to stay with an equal inhale and exhale. Or if you feel like lengthening the exhale, feel free. And we'll just take a couple more breaths here. Noticing the sensations you feel as you inhale and exhale. And then whenever you're ready, feel free to release control of the breath, coming back to your own natural breath. Maybe blinking open the eyes, wiggling the fingers and toes. And just notice how you feel at this very moment. You have just experienced a short, focused, relaxed breathing pranayama practice. According to Swami Niranjanananda Saraswati, pranayama is said to initiate the process of the transformation of the energy molecules of the physical body and the mental forces that arise with daily living. Daily living involves various external factors that elicit a physical and mental response known as stress. Stress can be caused by everyday activities or a single event, trauma, illness. It is our response to stress that makes a difference in our overall health. As we might have learned from previous presenters, stress has become a global epidemic. In 2023, the American Institute of Stress found that 77% of people reported stress negatively affected their physical health, and 73% of people reported that it negatively affected their mental health. It is said that 90% of chronic diseases is related to stress, and chronic disease accounts for 41 million fatalities annually, which comes to be around 74% of global mortality. Stress also impacts the global economy. It is estimated that American employers spend $300 billion annually on healthcare, as well as lost work days related to stress. Stress, anxiety, and depression cost the global economy around $1 trillion in lost productivity, and approximately 1 million workers don't show up to work every day due to the stress they experience at work. There are many physiological effects of deep breathing on the body, and you may have just experienced some of them, including the ability to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which help counteracts the stress response. Breathing practices can lower cortisol, reduce blood pressure, and improve heart rate variability, all of which are indicators of reduced stress. Breathing incorrectly and taking shorter and shallower breaths shifts our nervous system to a state of alert, making us feel like we are in fight and flight and under stress, activating the sympathetic nervous system. Unfortunately, studies have shown that 60 to 80% of people do not breathe correctly. I designed this study to look at making proper breathing guidance more accessible by using daily video instruction and investigating the feasibility of developing a breathing practice into a habit. Accessibility is the first step to having a consistent practice, and consistency is essential for receiving the benefits of any yoga practice. By choosing an accessible pranayama practice like focused relaxed breathing, this thesis study aims to be as inclusive as possible. Exploring the creation and adaptation of a pranayama practice with novices, this practice needed to be accessible to those from cultures that are not familiar with yoga. This means that the context of the pranayama practice was removed from the focused relaxed breathing intervention while still using the main yoga concepts. I wanted to explore whether the use of culturally accessible language helped with compliance. I designed this study as a remote virtual study to allow participants to access the study wherever they were, as long as they had an electronic device and internet connection. This was done in hopes of increasing accessibility and help support compliance. Finally, by using a 2-minute long intervention, I hope to make the time spent doing the breathing practice accessible to all, in hopes that the short practice would help participants develop a habit. Habit formation is thought to be a tool for change in long-term behavior. Habit is a result of exposure to a cue, craving, response, and reward, which are formed by learned associations between context and action through repeated performance. Habit tends to prompt behavior automatically, potentially unconsciously, with minimal cognitive effort. The performance of a habit in a specific context reinforces the context-action association in the memory, which in turn makes other alternative options harder to access, making the learned response the default. One research study found that the average time to reach this point is 66 days. The same study found a considerable range of days in the formation of habits, which is dependent on the frequency and repetition and the reward. With this information, I decided to investigate the feasibility of a 40-day daily practice, with the reward being the various benefits of a focused, relaxed breathing practice. I designed and recorded a 2-minute video focused, relaxed breathing, which was sent out daily for 40 days. The 2 Breathe Now study used modern and yogic science ideas of habit formation to design an accessible practice and use the modern and in yogic science behind the connection between the breath and the stress response to explore further the subjective benefits of a short pranayama practice. This study was first approved by the IRB board at LMU, and then I recruited participants via social media to sign up for the study, marketing to those who may be interested in learning about breathing practices. After a recruiting period of about 10 days, the study received 32 signed informed consent forms, 31 participants completed the screening survey, and 30 participants completed the initial stress survey to participate in the study. The ages of the participants ranged from 25 years old to older than 65. The majority of participants were between 35 to 44 years old, and the majority of the participants identified as Caucasian, most of them identifying as female and most of them working full-time. The exclusion criteria included not having an electronic device or internet connection, or a serious illness without doctor's consent, pregnancy, or practicing yoga and or meditation in the past 6 months. Of all the participants, only 12.9% had a respiratory ailment, but none of the participants had a condition serious enough to exclude them from participation. Most participants had either heard of yoga or meditation or had participated once in either activity, and the majority of participants had never engaged in breathing exercises of any type. Of those who had done breathing exercises, none of them had done them in over a year. Lastly, participants reported work as their primary source of stress, with finances, family, and health all coming in a close second. Participants were randomly assigned to 3 groups. The first person was assigned to Group A, the second to Group B, the third to Group C, and so on. Participants in Group A were assigned the 2-minute daily intervention with survey, and participants in Group B were assigned the daily 2-minute intervention with daily survey and an additional 5-minute weekly video on the yoga philosophy around breathing. And Group C received no intervention, but had daily surveys about their stress and mindfulness levels. There were 2 active interventions involved in this study, as I said before. The first was the 2-minute focused relaxed breathing video, which was emailed daily to both groups A and B. And participants were given the option of 3 different positions to do the breathing: seated, lying down, and prone. The intervention was much like the practice that we just did at the beginning of this presentation. And the second intervention was a 5-minute weekly yoga philosophy video, which was only given to Group B. For 5 weeks, participants in Group B received a video about present moment awareness, prana, the subtle body, breath and emotions, and the vayus. Participants were emailed the link to the videos once a week and instructed to watch the videos at their leisure. The email also included survey questions about how the videos supported their practice. Some data collection is still taking place, but with the surveys that have been received, SPSS was used to analyze the data. Looking at the diversity of the 3 groups, the participants' ages were split between the 3 groups, but some age groups were not represented in some of the different groups. And the 2 male participants were assigned both to the control group. The breathing and philosophy group only had Caucasian and Black or African American participants, and the breathing group had more participants who worked full-time and were retirees. At the start of the study, there were 30 active participants, during the study which 1 dropped from the breathing group and 4 dropped from the breathing and philosophy group, making the dropout rate about 16.6%. Of the 25 active participants, 10 belonged to the breathing group, 7 belonged to the breathing and philosophy, and 8 to the control group. To investigate the feasibility of developing a 2-minute daily breathing practice, the frequency of the practice was recorded and analyzed. Please note that the practices were only recorded if they filled out the daily survey. It is still possible that participants did the practice without filling out the survey. Of the 17 doing active interventions, 10 were recorded as having done the interventions for at least 21 days. Although in both active intervention groups, 5 participants did 20 days or more, in the group with breathing only 2 participants did 30 days or more. In the breathing and philosophy group, 5 participants did 30 days or more. This may give some insight into how context plays a role in consistency in developing a pranayama practice. As previously stated, participants were able to choose between seated, lying down, and prone positions. Using their most popular or preferred choice, it was found that the seated position was the most popular, of which 14 participants preferred over lying down or prone. Only 3 participants preferred the lying down position. The 3 individuals all practiced more than 20 days, which may show some relationship between position and frequency, as mentioned before. More research is required to find out more insight into the relationship between breathing position and the frequency of practice. All the retired participants practiced for more than 20 days, and 80% of the participants who withdrew from the study were full-time employees. 66.6% of participants who worked full-time did less than 10 days of the practice. This could point to time management as a potential barrier to developing a pranayama practice and daily habit. This relationship still needs more research to help find ways to bridge the barrier or to investigate other barriers that point to it. Participants were emailed daily, which acted as the cue to form a daily habit. However, from the exit surveys collected, 27% of participants would have liked a daily phone reminder, and 38% of participants would have liked help in scheduling it in their day, which also point to time management as a potential barrier. Other components of habit formation that were not part of the design of the study, but showed up as obstacles or resources needed to make this a habit, were family support and community. In his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear discusses the importance of being surrounded by like-minded people while developing a habit. He states, one of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to move to a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. The idea is that new habits seem more achievable when the people around you are doing them every day. This idea warrants further research to see its implications for developing a pranayama practice. As mentioned before, participants completed the Perceived Stress Scale Survey, a validated scale of perceived stress. The PSS scores ranging from 0 to 13 indicate low stress. Scores from 14 to 26 indicate moderate stress, and 27 to 40 is high stress. No participant received a low stress score in the initial PSS. Looking at the scores based on occupation, we can see that those who at least worked part-time tended to have higher scores, which may be a factor to look at when looking at potential barriers like time management, as mentioned earlier. Looking at the differences between the initial and final PSS scores, we can see there were changes. Here we have the initial PSS surveys, and here's the final. No one in the breathing group had high stress upon completion of the study. Only one in the breathing and philosophy group had high stress. And the number of high stress in the control group tripled. PSS scores in the two active interventions dropped an average of 2.3 points. Through the data analysis, I found that the more frequently that participants did the practice, the more likely that they lowered their PSS, their final PSS scores. Looking at the subjective benefits of a 2-minute daily breathing practice, it should be noted that 80% of participants did more than 2 minutes on occasion. They also reported some improvement in concentration, focused, clear mind, more tolerance, more patience, feelings of being in control, lifted spirits, and feelings of calm and renewal. Only 22% of participants reported any improvements in sleep. Current research supports that the benefits of breathing practice compound over time, which is why it was important to investigate the feasibility of a 2-minute breathing practice becoming a habit. 40 days is not enough time to know if one has created a habit, which is why surveys will be sent 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months after completion of the study. Participants who have already completed the 1-month follow-up survey all currently still have a breathing practice and use the same technique they learned in the study. The majority of them practice for more than 2 minutes and practice at least once a week. Although more research is needed, starting with a 2-minute practice may be a tool that is used to help develop a pranayama practice. The benefits that participants experienced are best described in their own words. I really like the flow and consistency of knowing what the narration was. I wasn't feeling unsafe or worried about taking in a religion I didn't identify with at all. I love how I breathe. It was beneficial. It did put me in a better mood and help me control my stress and not kill anyone. Trying to make time and remember to do them was a challenge. I have a better understanding and appreciation for having a breathing practice. I was beginning to experience less anxiety. In conclusion, although there currently is not enough data to determine if a 40-day, 2-minute daily practice supports individuals in developing a habit of a pranayama practice, there may be a promising trend. The data shows participants reported an affinity or likelihood to continue the practice. The 1-month follow-up surveys confirm that people are still practicing, and the 2-month and 3-month follow-up surveys will further assess this claim. There were reported subjective benefits to the study, especially in stress reduction. More research is needed to determine the duration of those benefits. Now, in the words of one of my heroes, Mr. Miyagi, when you feel like life is out of focus, always return to the basics of life, breathing. No breath, no life. My professor, Dr. Fazio, and I dedicate this to my cousin, Alethia. Thank you.